Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this Trying Family Web Series session. We will get started in just a few moments as we allow for attendees to enter from the waiting room. As folks are joining us, I would just like to make the announcement that tonight's session is being recorded. Again, thank you for joining us. We are just allowing attendees to make their way from the waiting room into the session. I want to bring to your attention the question and answer tool at the bottom of your webinar screen. During any time tonight during the session, you may utilize the Q&A feature to ask a question, either for our panelists or we will have staff behind the scenes answering questions offline. So again, that is the question and answer tool at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to use it during tonight's session at any point.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dan, for getting us set up. To all of our family members that have logged in to join us, we are so glad that you are here. The topic of today's talk is A Tale of Two Worlds, navigating the home community and the university community. So essentially what we're hoping to be able to share with you all today are the stories of our first-gen college students, first-gen alumni, and the ways in which they've navigated two worlds. How is it that they can be successful in supporting their family members while also being successful with the expectations of a rigorous public research university like UC San Diego. My name is Dr. Lindsey Romasanta, and I'm a proud first-generation college graduate, and I currently serve as Director of Student Success Programs. So essentially what that means is we have phenomenal resources here at UC San Diego that are catered towards supporting students who are the first in their families to go to college. We recognize that that legacy that they bring with them is really in part to the support of family members like you have logged on today. So we thank you for joining the Triton family. We're really excited to see your student with us, and that we hope that they'll partake not only in the knowledge today, but also the resources that we have here at UC San Diego. I'm proud to serve as a co-moderator with my good colleague Dan, and he'll now introduce himself as well.
Thank you, Lindsey. Yes, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight is not only a special session because it's our first Trying Family Web Series session of the spring quarter, but it is also the very first Trying Family Web Series session where we are welcoming newly admitted Trying families to join our current Trying families in attending tonight's session. So I want to give a big welcome to all of you. And again, as Lindsey mentioned, my name is Dan Perez. I am the program coordinator for the Office of Parent and Family Programs. That is the office that serves all undergraduate parents and family members. Not only do we put on events during the year, such as Homecoming Family Weekend, but we also provide a lot of different resources and be it publications, virtual sessions like this one today, or answering questions and helping in times of need. But before we jump into meeting our panel of students and alumni, we would like to get to know you all, the attendees. So we do have some polling questions that we're going to start with. Tonight's first poll is, please answer, is your student a newly admitted student, a first year, a sophomore, a junior, or a senior? So we would just like to learn a little bit about you and your student. All right, we have a great number of different families joining us tonight. And I would like to, again, give a big shout out to those newly admitted Trine families. Congratulations on your students' recent admittance to UC San Diego. We've got a great number of first-year students, a handful of sophomores, juniors, and seniors joining us. So it's great to welcome you all. We've got another polling question we'd like to ask. And this one is your student a first-generation student, meaning neither parent has a 4-year college degree? Is your student a student with a dependent, means that they are caring for or parenting one or more dependents? Is your student a transfer student, or is your student an undocumented student? All right, thank you for answering. Well, to be expected that the highest number of attendees tonight are first generation families. We do have students that hit all of these different criteria. So we do have some students with dependents joining us, some transfer students, and some undocumented students. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that information and joining us tonight. All right, we've only got 2 more polls left. The next poll is going to be about where your student is currently learning from. So this is mainly for our current families. Is your student living on campus? Is your student living at home and learning remotely? Or is your student living in their apartment off campus and learning from there? All right. Thank you for answering. Looks like we've got a great number of students living and learning from home. We've got quite a few who are living on campus and a few that are living off campus. So that's great. And our last polling question tonight is we're actually going to now ask where you're joining us from. So are you joining us tonight from an international location? Are you an international family? Is your family out of state, not in California? Or is your family local to California and that's where you're joining us tonight from? All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. We've got a lot of local Californians joining us. So thank you so much. But it's great to see some participation and some engagement from our international and out-of-state families. One of the best benefits about doing these virtual sessions is being able to bring resources, our students, our alumni to you in your homes and where you're joining us from. So thank you so much for carving out your time tonight and ensuring that you can spend an hour with us and our amazing panel of students and alumni. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Lindsey so she can introduce you to that panel.
Thank you so much, Dan. And for all of the families that have tuned in, it's wonderful to see the different intersectional identities and also places that you all represent. So without further ado, we want to make sure that our panelists get the most prime time opportunities to connect with all of you and share their stories. So we have actually 4 panelists that will be sharing their stories tonight. So Danielle Urena is a first-gen college student and also an employee of the first-gen student success coaching program here at UC San Diego. We also have Barbara Ladesma, who is an alumni, Leon Gallardo, who's an alumni, and also Mae Thatch, who is a grad student and a staff member here at UC San Diego. So they're each going to spend some time talking a little bit about themselves. So I'll have some scripted questions. Remember, the Q&A is available for you all to be able to ask a little bit more about our panelists as well. But if I could just go ahead and have Daniel start. Tell us about yourself and what motivated you to pursue college.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm Daniel Reña. I'm a theater and dance double major. I'm a second year and a Marshall student. What motivated me to pursue college? Something I've always wanted to pursue college. It's just something my parents installed in me. They've always valued education. They've always told me that education's number one. So just growing up, I always knew that there was more to high school. Like I needed to like pursue university. But specifically what drove me to come to UCSD was I remember as I was like touring all the schools, because I'm from North California, as I was going down, going to all the schools, I stepped on UC San Diego. I'm like, this is it. This is the vibe. I'm like, this is where I want to be surrounded. And I've been happy since. So it's kind of just like, I just really loved, just like the vibe of UC San Diego, and kind of just, that's really what motivated me to be here and pursue being a student.
Thank you so much. It is a vibe. It's a beautiful place to be at UC San Diego. So now I'd like to ask Barbara the same question. Go ahead, Barbara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Barbara Ladesma. I'm an alumni from UC San Diego, class of 2019. I was a double major with political science and urban studies and planning. I always knew college was in the plan for me because my parents made us always very aware of how education had changed them and their lives. And they knew that that was like how you could get ahead in life, and they always wanted the best for us. So they were very supportive and encouraging, always encouraging me to study what I wanted, most importantly. And to add on to that, I chose UC San Diego for political science and urban studies and planning down the line, mostly because it was somewhere where I finally felt like I was talking with people in my language, in my own wavelength, that understood that there was more to learn and were hungry to learn that. And that was honestly one of the best feelings you get in UC San Diego, that just constant energy and willingness to learn there.
Thank you, Barbara. Diane, would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Diane and I graduated from UC San Diego Muir College last year, majored in international relations, double-minored in business and Russian studies. And the reason I chose to pursue college was because I grew up in a small town, knowing that I wanted to branch out. I wanted to know what else was out there. And then I chose UC San Diego because of the location, but then I kept coming back every single year and every single day because of the people, the support, and it was just an all-around great experience full of people that encouraged you to keep going forward.
Thank you, Diane. And May, bringing in the perspective of a grad student who comes from out of state, tell us about what motivated you to go to college and also pursue studies at UC San Diego.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is May Thatch, she, hers. Like Lindsey said, I'm also a graduate student here at UCSD. For me, why, I think like most of everyone the panelists has said, I think college has just always been in our plan as first-gen students and in our families. And so I always knew that I was going to go to college. And like for me, I think being that I'm first gen and I had to like do a lot of planning ahead of time, especially being from a low income family. So for me, I think the planning to go to college started in middle school, where I started looking for scholarships and fellowships. So then that's really how I was going to be able to afford to go to college in the future. And so I think it's always, in the mix. And for me, why I chose UCSD. So I'm originally from Florida, so the other coast. And that's where I went to my undergrad as well. And then I chose UCSD for my graduate program, specifically for the regional focus that is in my program, which is in Masters of International Affairs with a development track and a regional focus in Southeast Asia. And it's great that we had California right here. I felt like, it's accessible to the Asia Pacific area. And so mainly that's why I chose UCSD. And like others have said, it's definitely the community that are here. UCSD, as a supportive system, can be very fast paced. And so having that support network is really important. And I think I found it here at UCSD.
Great, thank you. So now we have over 100 family members that have logged on to really learn a little bit more about the first gen experience. So in reflecting in either your current experience as a student or in reflecting your experiences when you were a student, what were some of the ways that you involved your family in your college life? I think many of our families that have tuned in would be curious to know, where is their space and how can they show support to their first gen students? So maybe if I could ask Barbara to go first. Barbara, what are your thoughts on this?
I always say, well, okay, I have to preface this with both of my parents. Once they did go to school later in life, they both chose to study STEM fields. And as a political science student, I always felt a little bit concerned that they might have some issue with it that they weren't voicing. And it was always, all the time I was applying to colleges and looking at different schools, they were concerned about location because they wanted me to stay close to home, close to the Imperial Valley, but they never pressured me on why I chose that major. And it wasn't until after my first year, on the drive back to home for the summer a little bit, my dad finally asked, like, okay, political science, what is that? What are you gonna do with that? And just having the patience to give me time to figure that out for myself, to be in that field for just 1 year of study, just 1 year of let's see what this is something that I consistently tell them thank you for. So a lot of times it's having patience to let your child make their own decisions. You know, you might have reservations or concerns, but sometimes you have to trust in them and trust in yourself that everything will work out. So I always think that was one really, really important thing, 1 year of waiting to see what my plan was. And thankfully at that point, I did have an answer for him after my class at the very end of the year. Yeah.
Absolutely. So much about college is really exploring and figuring things out. So I'm glad that you recognize the importance of having patience for yourself. And it's so great that your parents could reflect on that as well. So Daniel, I'd be curious, how do you currently, involve your family in the college experience?
Yeah, when I was first choosing a school, my parents were actually very chill and very they didn't put a lot of pressure on me, because I would always ask them, I'm like, oh, what do you think of this school, what do you think of that school? And they'd be like, we're not giving you any opinions, we want this to be your decision, which is really great. But I'm like, give me your opinions. And but like, I actually really appreciated that, because I chose full autonomy of my school, and I'm happy with that decision. But in terms, now that I'm here, it's a lot of transparency. I always tell them what classes I'm doing, what taking and stuff. And especially with my major, I actually came in as an international business major, but then I switched over to theater and dance. I've been doing theater and dance for all of high school. So and I kept doing it, and I didn't really like international business, so that's why I made the switch. And like Barbara said, it was actually like, I'm like, oh, how are they going to take this and stuff? But is this kind of that support system and kind of that, individuality that I needed, and that growth that college comes with, that my parents really supported me and gave me. And, it's that's really how I kind of just like let them know and be transparent about what I'm doing here, and just kind of, check in on them and be like, I'm doing great out here.
Yeah, that's really wonderful to hear, Danielle. And for me and Diane, I'm going to switch up the question a little bit. I'd like you all to reflect, what were some of the best ways that you could remember that your family supported you while you were a student at UC San Diego, or currently a student at UC San Diego? Diane, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I guess some of the best ways that come to mind are, as was previously stated, the trust and the transparency. It's a whole new experience, because my parents did tell me from the start, like, hey, you're moving out, we're no longer gonna know what time you come home, or if you finished your homework and making sure you didn't oversleep. But something that was really big in high school was like my mom would always come wake me up because I was really bad with alarms, and that transitioned over to college, where in the morning she would call me and be like, "Hey, you have class soon. Are you awake?" So just knowing that I like, yes, I was no longer living at home with my parents, but that my parents are still there trying to make sure that I was getting to things on time, asking me, "Hey, like, how are your classes going?" Never really asked me for my grades. And then in college, you no longer have like those report cards that get sent home, but just being able to like have that open communication and feeling comfortable enough and the trust that they have to be able to like be like, "Yeah, so this is how my classes are going. These are my grades. This is the time I got home tonight."
Go ahead, May.
Yeah, and for myself, honestly, I'm really thankful because they put a lot of trust in me in like making my decisions, and especially even going to graduate school across the country, right? Like I think they've already had experience with me living away from home for since I was 18, and even after I worked as well, I was in a different continent altogether. And so I think they're used to me being away from home. And so, but there was always that support there no matter what. And for me personally, how like our relationship with support is that as my mom has, never been to college before, it's more showing her what is I'm doing in college, right? Like giving her that experience also, letting her know, what are the things I'm interested in, and then things that, like why I'm always, not like why I'm always busy and things that I'm doing and all those stuff. It's really good because then she gets a little bit of a view into my life, and then even now as COVID and we're doing a lot of virtual school, she's really seeing like, oh wow, like when you say you're busy, like you are really busy. And it's like, yeah, I am, so it's like finally almost believing me. It's like, yeah, I wasn't just saying it to get off the phone. But no, I think it's always, I'm definitely very thankful that they always like trust that I know the right decision for myself and for what I'm trying to study and do at UCSD.
That's great. Thank you so much, May and Diane. So we know that UC San Diego is a place with lots of opportunities, whether it's research, opportunities to connect with, award-winning faculty. So in thinking about what your transition to college was like, what were the low points and what were the high points? So maybe Diane, if I could go backwards and have you start this time. So thinking about your transition, what were the high points? What were the low points? And how do you think family members can support their students through the high and low points?
So I feel like the high points were definitely where I felt like there was a lot going on. I but everything was working out in the end. So let's say like I had a really long week or long day where I had to go to work for 4 or 5 hours. Then I had two classes back to back, and then I had like an assignment due later that night. So just knowing that, okay, this is what I'm gonna do today, being able to keep track of all of it and actually finishing at the end of that day, that was always the high point for me. And then just knowing that my family was always there if I ever needed anything. I remember there was one time when I called my mom, I was super overwhelmed. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, but I haven't cried yet, so I don't know." uh, and so she was just there to like make sure, knowing that like she hadn't gone through college, so she didn't really know what I was going through, but just knowing that I was overwhelmed and like she was always there to support me. And then my dad has always been slightly more quiet, but he was the silent supporter. He was always there too if I ever needed him for anything. As for the low points, this is a hard one. I feel, yeah, any low point would be whenever I missed a deadline or whenever I didn't get the job that I wanted. It it sucks, it's sad, but at the end of the day, like just knowing that my family was there to tell me, "Hey, it's okay, it happens. You'll get the next one," or keep in touch with your professor. Maybe they'll extend your deadline. So just having that support was always what lifted me up from those low points.
Thank you, Diane. And Daniel, as a current student, you have been experiencing UC San Diego virtually for the past year. So for you, what was the transition like to that? And what are some ways that your family has supported you through the high points and low points?
Mm-hmm. So for a little bit of context, I spent my first year in person. So I got to experience a little bit of in person and how everything, and then I've also experienced the transition over to everything being online, and I'm only a second year. So we got a lot more to go, but some of the low points definitely was, more context. I'm in a living learning community called Raza, and those are, I live with my closest friends. We all live in the same apartment. And some of the lowest point was right when the pandemic started, was going back home. And I'm like, oh no, like I'm like, it's just like, I was like living my best life in San Diego. I was like doing everything with my closest friends. I was doing school, I was doing everything. And that was definitely like a low point. But now that I've returned and I reapplied to Raza, I've gotten to live with them again. And the best part is that I get to quarantine with them. So it's like, I get to quarantine with my closest friends. And like every single day has been like a pretty awesome day. Cause like I said, we're pretty close. So it's just like, definitely the low points, like they do suck. But honestly, the accomplishments and like all the good things that come out of college overshadow that. And I feel like it's definitely like something I love, and I definitely like, I don't know, it's just something beautiful that college comes with, even in a pandemic. This is the friends you make and all of that stuff. And the transition was definitely rough, but it was like a one that was worth it.
And then Barbara, would you like to respond to the question?
Yeah, so I believe it was my second year. I had just been hit with this crazy wave of homesickness and just feeling like confused about stuff and like, do I still even want to be here? And it's very common, I later find out, for second years, because that's when you get your first, like, maybe that's when you failed your first stats class or second stats class, like I did. And I just got really demotivated. And I remember I was talking with my mom and I was just telling her, I was like, yeah, I'm going to class, I'm doing fine, I'm going. And I'm not much of a person to share like, oh, I met this person and I'm telling my parents or anything. But I had mentioned my mom a TA I really liked from my freshman year. And my mom remembered that. And she asked me about that TA. And coincidentally, she was my professor. And because my mom remembered that and asked me about like, hey, did you ever talk again with that student assistant you liked? I was like, no, but I could do like the coffee with the professor, the dinner with the professor with them and see what they're like. And she was like, do it. She said like the best part of school for her was always talking with professors, both in high school and elementary school. She just was always that kind of student and encouraged me to do that. And talking with her and hearing like another option or another way to connect with my schooling, because I had just gotten so sick of homework and lecture and everything. She just gave me another option, try something new. I ended up having a really great dinner with the professor and it was a great outcome from that. So that was one low that I really like. I talked about it with my family and my mom did, like, I don't think she knew I was going through something as stressful as I was, but it was really helpful that she just said like, try something new, try something a little bit out there. But yeah, another high was or after that low, you get to the high of senior year when you're showing your thesis to them, and the pictures from that are just always make me smile.
So May, not only have you gone through transitions as a student, as a grad student, as an employee, but you also help lots of peers help support other students in their transition. So talk a little bit about that and what do you think some of the key transition high and low points that might exist either for you or the students that you have helped serve?
I think just with any transition, right? I think the nervousness before you even arrive on campus is definitely there. And so for that transition, we try to, I think, like, prepare students, but also just get them excited. Like, kind of just think about like all the butterflies that they have to just, hey, like, get excited to get here. And then once they do get here, we are disseminating information slowly, like not bombarding students with all the resources, because like any of big campus, you have a ton of resource for students to use. But we make sure that the resource we give to our students are geared towards each of the transitions. So before midterms hit, we'll give them study tips before the weeks before it, just to make sure that they feel prepared for it. And then maybe after midterms, it's a little bit more conversation surrounding self-care, checking in with yourself, and then near the end of the quarter, celebrating your accomplishments, talking about the highs and lows that you've had, and just basically telling students and myself to like celebrate how much I've gone through each quarter, and then each year, and then eventually by the time you graduate as well. And and then along the way is having check-ins, especially. So something that is a little bit that I notice has been great, but yeah, I guess great in a way that through COVID, sometimes we can feel like this disconnect from our support system because we're doing everything virtually. And so we've been making conscious efforts with our students and our peers to say, hey, check in with your family members, because sometimes we're like, oh, it's just going to be a phone call, or it's just going to be another Zoom meeting. But then after, usually when you're just talking to someone who might be outside of your, cohort of just the school, it actually makes you feel better. You feel more connected to each other and don't feel like, oh, it's just a screen. But there's just so much you can do as well, just for the sheer fact that you're checking in with one another. And so we definitely encourage that to our students, to check in with their family, their support network, whenever it's possible.
Thank you all so much. These are great insights. So my next question is this, really important word, which is balance. So in thinking about the word balance, how, if you did, how do first generation college students achieve balance with navigating, expectations that their family might have, and then also balancing, the rigor of UC San Diego classroom expectations. A lot of you mentioned being student leaders and student workers and being involved in internships and other aspects. So tell us a little bit about that experience. Tell us about, is balance possible? What worked for you? And how can families support in that process? Daniel, would you like to go first?
I believe balance is 100% like, you can do it. You can definitely do it. Even though a lot of people say UCSD is very hard. It's challenging, but there is balance to it. I remember my first year, it was my second week here. I didn't know what was going on. I auditioned for my first show, and I had I had rehearsals from 6 to 10 every single night. And that took up a big chunk of my life. And I was doing 4 classes, and it was just a lot that I threw myself in my very first quarter, but it was because these things were important to me, is why I found this balance, and also just staying organized and all this stuff. But like, if these things are important to you, you will find balance. Your life will balance out for it. And it was actually definitely very hard to like keep in touch with my family and still stay focused in my education and stuff. But I was able to talk with them and call them here and there. And it's just, definitely important. And also UC San Diego also has the resources for you to help find your balance. I know whenever I struggled in some classes, or I couldn't like fit some time in or something, most of the professors would be, some of them would be flexible, some of them won't, but you'll find it. But essentially I was always able to find some sort of resource, or some sort of like help to help me find that balance. And so it's not impossible. It may be a little hard to find, but it's there.
Diane, what about you?
Yeah, so as Daniel was saying, balance is completely possible. I remember my first year, I showed up and I was like, wow, like there's no one telling me what to do anymore. And so I had a really good social life. My grades were not the best. And so after like a quarter or two of realizing like, no, like I can't keep doing what I was doing in high school. I actually have to do like try different learning styles, different writing styles. I actually have to figure out what works for me here. Then I was definitely able to bring my GPA up and also keep some of that social aspect without going overboard and balancing both of them, like my schoolwork and social life. And as Daniel was saying, there are a lot of resources on campus. One of my personal favorites was the Teaching and Learning Commons. They they have tutors in literally any subject, any course on campus, and they'll know the syllabus like from your course like the back of their hand. And I went for them. I went to them a lot to get help on writing essays. And I had a lot as a political science major. We wrote a lot, and so Teaching and Learning Commons definitely helped me out in editing my essays. As for my family, I definitely learned to appreciate them a lot more than I did when I was living with them. Because when I was here, like I was used to seeing them every day. I was like, oh, they're just I don't want to say I took them for granted, but I kind of did when I was living here with them. And then after I left, I realized all the little things that like they really did for me and that I missed. And so it turned into one of those things where when I first moved out, it was always my parents reaching out to me. And then after like a few months, I was like, oh, I haven't talked to you all in a few days. Like, how are you? And so once you are away from home, you do get the whole, your family's always going to be there for you, and they're always there to support you whenever you meet them.
Great. Distance does make the heart grow fonder, right, Diane? Thanks so much. May, what about you? What are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I told myself that I wasn't gonna be one of those people that live by their calendar, but I definitely am. But that is really where I like find and strike that balance. And like the other panelists has said, it is possible, but ultimately I think to find that balance is just kind of you having to reassess. And I think this happens as often as we want it to be, but reassessing your priorities. And I think really being important that whatever your priorities are for that moment or that time, just being like true to yourself about that priority and then making it happen. Really, that's where your balance is going to be, because I think we're definitely going to have stressors from ourselves and from others. But I think having that conversations with ourselves and putting like what our priorities are, it will really help us find that balance between whatever priorities we have.
Thank you, May. And then last but not least, Barbara.
I mean, balance changes a lot in time. I still feel like I'm still figuring out balance today, but in college, it was definitely like your first full control of your balance. If you're admitted to UC San Diego, you're a very active student. I'm sure you already are used to having extracurriculars and, a bunch of AP or IB or advanced classes and all of that. But to really be able to decide everything for yourself, to decide, not only your major, but what specialty within your major, what classes within it really pique your interest and all of that. It can be really easy to lose balance. You can just lose balance in your class schedule. You having too many classes of one subject over another. It was always about moderation with me, in keeping, my excitement contained enough that it could fuel a 10-week quarter, keeping, my schedule open enough that I could pick up things halfway through the quarter. If, event came up or a project came up that was more time consuming. So it was all about flexibility and balance and just being open to new opportunities, and also knowing when to kind of step back and say, no, we probably don't want to take 3 chemistry classes in one quarter. Maybe just do one.
Thank you all so much. So, several of you have, earned your degree. We have Danielle, who's, going to be transitioning to being a third year soon. So in thinking about that, what do you think is the single most important thing UC San Diego has brought to your life as a first-gen college student and as a student in general? May, I'd like you to go first.
Yeah, I think that I think as a first generation student, you really are like you already possess like the resiliency and like the strength in you, no matter which place you decide to go to. But I think truly knowing that within yourself, so then when you are at a place like UCSD where we said it is rigorous and fast paced, you still know that like you have the strength to be able to do that. And as a first gen, yes, I think the quote's always been like, you're the first, but you won't be the last, right? And the great thing, honestly, about UCSD is how much they have supported the first generation students. And for me, coming from my undergraduate institution, which I love dearly, I don't think back when I was in undergrad, there was really that much conversation surrounding first gen. Like I barely knew I was a first gen student until it was like sophomore, junior year, and like the word kind of came out, and I was like, wait, is that me? And and so now coming to UCSD, seeing how much support there is for first generation students, it's honestly really empowering, and it makes me really excited for future first gen students to have the support. But yeah, ultimately, number one advice is you already have that strength and resiliency within you, being a first gen student. So just think of that and rely on that when you ever feel like things are getting too hard.
Thank you. All right, Danielle, what are your thoughts?
I feel like the best thing I've probably gotten out of like UCSD here is probably just a sense of a community within my first gen community, my living learning community. I like I mentioned earlier, for all the people who got accepted, please apply to the living learning community. It's the best thing you'll ever experience. But these like I every time I go back home to my apartment, I'm hanging out with my best friends. And every time I go to work, it's with coworkers I love. And every time I go like do my go to class, it's with people I know because I'm a theater major and most of the classes are pretty small in that major. But it's just like everywhere I go, I always find a small sense of my community and all of the things I love. And it's because of that reason why I'm so happy here. And it's just like it's something amazing that UC San Diego built, especially with the college system and just how personalized some things can get. And I just feel like definitely like for the incoming students, I suggest like find your community, join orgs, join clubs, join things that like you can find your people with, because like it's something so beautiful hanging out with people you love or hang out with people you like or working with people you like and love. And it's just like that's like every single day is like an awesome day here, because I'm just like I wake up with my best friends and then I go to work with some of the coolest coworkers, and then I go to like the class with some of my friends from there too. And it's just an awesome atmosphere to be around with.
Thank you so much. And then Barbara and Diane, to close us off, you all are alumni of UC San Diego, which is a phenomenal thing to celebrate. So in reflecting on your experience, what was the single most important thing that UC San Diego brought to your life? Diane, would you like to go?
Of course. The single most important thing that UC San Diego brought to my life, I would say adventure and exploration, because you go there, you're at a completely brand new place and you don't know what there is to do yet. And so you got to go and explore. You got to go learn what resources the university has to offer. Go into all of the resource centers, even if you feel like they don't exactly represent your ethnicity or your race. Like you can go into every single one of them and they will welcome you in. And a lot of them have free printing. So that's a great thing to know. And also just going to all of the events, whether they're the ones that offer you free food or the ones that offer roller skating rink that just in the or yeah, just any fun thing that is there's to do out there. Join, as Daniel was saying, join orgs, figure out if you like the org, figure out if you don't like the org, leave the org and then go find another one. Like just explore different things, learn who you really are.
Barbara?
it might be cheesy if I say ditto, but my experience was very similar. Just to add on to that, I would say it made me aware of how much optimism I had in me. I had so many moments where I thought, like, this is it. I don't want to go anymore. I'm tired. I'm done. I don't want to look at anything anymore. No more screens, nothing. And to realize I had the voice in me every time to say, like, no, you made a commitment to yourself, to your family, to everyone, to get back up and to keep pushing forward. And some days, college is a marathon. Some days you push that big rock miles. Some days you move it inches. So realizing that resiliency was in me was definitely one of the best experiences.
Awesome. Well, thank you, panelists. I'm going to transition to handing over to my colleague, Dan, who's going to facilitate the Q&A portion from our families that have tuned in.
Thank you, Lindsey, and thank you four for all that you've shared already. And I've got some questions to ask you all, so you can sort of share some more. So again, I just want to let our attendees know that you can utilize the question and answer tool at the bottom of your screen to post some questions. We've got about 10 minutes for a Q&A, and we've got our first question from an attendee tonight of a parent of a first-year student. So this is actually, I'm going to throw it to Daniel and Diane, for those, because you had to study remotely or have been studying remotely. The parent says their student is a first year and is learning remote from home and out of state. They want to know, how can a student go about establishing a mentor relationship or a connection with an academic or major advisor? So how did you all, Diane, I know you were remote only for a quarter, and I know Daniel, you've been remote for a bit longer, or you've been dealing with remote learning for a bit longer with the campus not fully open. So how did you go about maintaining relationships with faculty through that remote learning environment? How did you maybe come about creating a mentorship or a connection with an advisor? So whichever one of you would like to start.
I'll take it away. All right, so basically, for some reason, connecting with my professor has been a lot easier through Zoom. I kind of like it when all the faces start disappearing on Zoom and it's just me and the professor, and I'm like, now let me ask my questions, like, and stuff. And it's just, because it's a lot more one-on-one and it's so accessible now. Like, I can just roll out of bed. I'm like, okay, let me find the link. Let me go talk to my professor. It's office hours. Instead of having to walk across campus and actually talk to them, I feel like it's become a lot more accessible for me to like connect with some advisors and my professors like that. But what's really been maintaining my connection with them is that is kind of my career. I feel like I'm at this point where I really want to start launching my career, and therefore my professors are in the field and are currently working in it and are even adapting to an online form, like some sort of theater. And I'm always staying after class and being like, oh, what can I do? How can you help me? And they're great resources as well. But like, primarily it's just making sure, being clear, communicative with them, and just kind of like getting to know them and make sure they know your name and who you are, because that's really important. Sometimes you have classes with like 200 people and they'll be like, who are you? And you really got to like ask questions, go to office hours, and, you know, just get to know your professors. And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing. Go to office hours, make sure to book appointment with it, or the coffee with the professor thing. I've done, I haven't done one of those, but I've done like an unofficial one where I just came into office hours and we just talked, but definitely. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you for sharing. Diane, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I actually agree with a lot of what Daniel was saying. I only experienced learning from home from like the start of the pandemic until June. And so I was there when a lot of the professors were still trying to figure out Zoom, or like still trying to figure out like, why aren't you all answering me? And so it was definitely interesting. But the way that I stayed connected was also a lot of email. If any question came up, knowing that I just like shoot an email to one of my professors and be like, hey, like I don't understand this certain thing, or can you explain this a little bit more? And then they would also oftentimes hit me with the when I come to office hours. And then so then I would have to go to like the Zoom call office hours, which is it's a great resource. Not enough students take advantage of it. And so definitely go there and you will get that one-on-one time with your professors.
I'd just like
Great.
to add a note at the
Oh.
end of this. Since your student is looking for mentorship, sometimes you just got to be blunt. It's especially right now with Zoom communication. If you approach a professor with like, hey, you worked on this really cool project, can I help you out with that project, with that research idea or anything? If your student's interested in what the professor does and shows up with the professor, oftentimes that's a great way in into a mentorship or a route like that.
Thanks for that wisdom, Barbara. And thank you, Diane and Daniel, for those answers. So the next question I have is from another parent is, what helped you decide on UC San Diego? So since I started with Diane, Danielle, first I'm going to go with you, Barbara. What helped you decide on your decision to attend UC San Diego? I know maybe a long time ago because you've been graduated for 2 years now, but maybe if you can think way back when.
I think I wore the shirt to Triton Day, so I'll see if I find a picture of that. That was definitely one day that helped me make the decision to go to UC San Diego. I would say I really wanted a new environment, some place that I hadn't experienced before. And I grew up in the Imperial Valley, which is a really small agricultural community, and I wanted to see what else was out there. So the fact that UC San Diego was about 3 hours away, close enough to home that I could go for a weekend, but not too close that I was getting a lot of visits unexpectedly. But it was really the newness of it, the uniqueness, and the energy that people just always had there.
Thanks for sharing. All right, we're going to go reverse order. So Diane, what helped make your decision to attend UC San Diego?
I actually agree with a lot of what Barbara said. It was a lot of the newness. I was also looking for somewhere close enough to where I could visit home, but far enough to where I had to move out and just learn to be more independent on my own, and then just like a place that was going to help me grow. And I actually didn't have the experience of like visiting on campus and falling in love with the campus as soon as I saw it and then be like, this is where I'm going to go. I actually signed my intent to attend UC San Diego before I'd seen the campus. I had only seen pictures, and if you Google UC San Diego, it's going to be a lot of pictures of our library. And so I very much knew what the library looked like, but I didn't know too much of the location. And then I had a friend in high school who said that she was going to be attending, and then so I was like, okay, let's do this. So I picked San Diego and then never regretted it. Beautiful location, amazing people, great resources. It was a great time.
All right, last but certainly not least, Daniel.
Well, I kind of talked about this in the early, it was kind of just a vibe. I remember I was touring other schools as well, and like right when I stepped on UCSD, I was like walking around Library Walk, which is right in front of our library. I was just like, yeah, this is it. Like I was walking around and it was just like some sort of vibe. And I mean, I also wanted to have some sort of like technical reason, not just a vibe or like some sort of feeling. And something that I really liked about the school was just the amount of majors. And as I was going in, it was international business. Like I said, I didn't really know if I wanted to do that at the time. And I'm like, hey, they have so many majors, I can choose something else. If international business doesn't like work out, which it didn't, but I have a lot more options. But it was definitely the number one reason was just like the atmosphere. I really love the physical campus and the beauty in it. And I know I wanted something new, something, as everyone was saying, something new. And I wasn't really looking. Everyone said like, oh, something close to home. I'm like 9 hours away. I didn't really want something super far away from home, but I really fell in love with this campus, and it's just, that was really the main reason why I chose this school.
Great. Thank you for sharing. So we've got time for one more question. And I think all of you may be able to provide some insight on this, but the question from one of our participants are impromptu visits from parents or family members a good thing or a bad thing for students? So May, we haven't heard from you. I'd like to start with you with this question. So are impromptu visits from parents or family members a good or bad thing for students?
Maybe I'll be diplomatic and say both. But okay, I would say good because the first impromptu that really like warmed my heart was my first year in college, like my undergrad. I just was talking on the phone with my older brother. And I was just saying, like, oh yeah, I was asking like, oh, like what cold medicine do I need? Because I usually don't get sick. And so I just asked him that. And he was living at home at that time. And then I think he was like, by the end of the night, like I got a knock at my door, and I was like, who's here at this time? And it was my mom with my brother, and he said, oh, she overheard like what you said, and so she's like, she has to come here, and she made me like this kanji soup that she always makes when we're feeling when we're sick. And then miraculously, seriously, like the next day I felt better. So I was like, whoa, maybe it's like mother's intuition or something like that. And then I would say it's bad when we're like midterm season. Like we really cannot handle any like extra excitement, I would say, during that time. So I would say if you're thinking of impromptu, either sometime early in the quarter, that's probably the best.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you to our amazing panel for answering not just the questions from our attendees tonight, but the questions we had come up with when we started this panel. I am going to pass it back to Lindsey right quick as we start to wrap up tonight's session.
Great. So for all of the family members that are on, we really would love for you to make sure that your student is connected to our Student Retention and Success Unit. Within Student Retention and Success, a variety of different high impact practices and support programs for all kinds of students. So things like undergraduate research, summer bridge, the scholarship program through the Chancellor's Associate Scholarship Program, the First Gen Success Coaching Program, which Daniel did such a good job representing. We have peer-to-peer coaches that support students who are the first in their families to go to college. And then also our Undocumented Student Services Unit, our Student Veterans Resource Center, and Transfer Student Success. So please check us out. And we'd love to support you and your student as they have a successful and thriving experience here at UC San Diego.
Also, for all the family members on the call, just to reiterate, the office that I represent is the Office of Parent and Family Programs, a very familiar office to Diane and Barbara. And we are the office that is, again, committed to serving all families of undergraduate students at UC San Diego. We provide a plethora of different programs, services, resources. I know May had mentioned it's important to know when, what point of the quarter it is during your students' time here at UC San Diego. One of the many resources we do offer is a virtual train transitions calendar, which has all those dates, all the important events, when midterms are, when finals are. That's just one of the many things you can find on our website, which is parents.ucsd.edu. And again, we strive to be a holistic and collaborative partner, not just with families, but also with all departments across the campus so that we can create those connections for you and we can help you and your student navigate this very large university so it doesn't seem that big. Lastly, I know that I spoke at the beginning that this session will be recorded. And if you would like to watch this back on our YouTube channel with subtitles of a preferred language, you can do that by following these directions. Simply selecting the settings, selecting subtitles, selecting auto translate, and then selecting the preferred language in which you would like to rewatch this session or share this session in a preferred translated subtitle language. And again, for our current families, we have a lineup that is kicking off tonight of our spring quarter Trying Family web series. And there's a lot of sessions that are on our senior family track, but we believe that they're applicable to all students and families, no matter where they are in their UC San Diego journey. All that information is available on our website that goes in depth on these 3 sessions, plus registration, just like you registered for the 9th session, is currently open. Again, I want to thank you for attending tonight. I want to give a big thanks to my colleagues, Lindsey, who's been on screen, and our colleagues Rachel and Suzette, who have been providing help on the back end. And it has been wonderful to host our panel of alumni and students. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. So again, if you are a current undergraduate family, I hope to see you throughout the rest of the quarter. And if you are an admitted family, I hope to see you in the summer and in the fall as we welcome your students to be the class of 2025, I believe, which is crazy that we're already there. So thank you and good night.